final redemption, the restoration of all things, the reunion of heaven and earth, the reunification of the name. A lot of different mindsets and perspectives on the last days. Hi, this is Barry, folks. A 10-minute Torah, day 3, the Torah portion of Vayigash. And we are now in Bereshit, or Genesis, chapter 45. Yesterday, we read verse 1 and 2 from this chapter. Let's begin with verse 3 and following. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. He would have said, Ani Yosef. Is my father still alive? But his brothers were unable to answer him, for they trembled before him. Then Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. And when they came near, he said, I am Joseph. Ani Yosef, your brother, whom you sold into Mitzrayim. And now do not be grieved nor displeased with yourselves because you sold me here, for Elohim sent me before you to preserve life. For 2 years now, the scarcity of food has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there is neither plowing nor harvesting. And Elohim sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth and to give life to you by a great escape. So then you did not send me here, but Elohim. And he has set me for a father to Pharaoh, and master of all of his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. Hurry now and go to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, Elohim has made me master of all of Mitzrayim. Come down to me and do not delay. Down in verse number 12, he said, look, your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. They needed the clarification and the blunt communication. Look, it's my mouth. I'm not speaking through an interpreter. I'm speaking in Hebrew to you. I'm Joseph. There are as many scenarios, expectations, theories, even doctrines about the last day, more than we can count. In recent years, I've heard, the tribulation period, this expected 7-year period of time that is theorized to be 3.5 years of good and then 3.5 years of evil. Not real sure how we clarify that. What's taken from the book of Daniel, it's in the midst of these 7 years, not necessarily half and half. There are ideas that the tribulation has been whittled down to a much shorter time frame. One even saying it's going to be 6 months and then it's done. A lot of guesses out there. The reality is we are looking at days yet unseen. We are deciphering and discerning prophecies and a list of information text that we have to kind of pull together and analyze. And of course, there are experts everywhere on this. And they will tell you we are already in the tribulation, or it's not for another X number of years. And it will be this way. No, it will be that way. Well, the reality is, Joseph here says 2 years have passed. There's 5 years remaining. And we've got to deal with this. Even if we get time frames wrong, even if our determination of what year the return of Yeshua might take place, if we get that wrong, there is still something else that needs to take place. In the 18th century, there was a text or a book that was written called Kol HaTorah, The Voice of the Turtle Dove. It was written by Rabbi Hillel Shklover, who was the grandnephew and disciple of the famous Gaon of Vilna, a very famous rabbinical researchist and rabbi. And he lists in this text 156 aspects of Messiah ben Yosef. And from that, let me quote. He says, Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Okay, that's true. This is one of the traits of Joseph, not only in his own generation, but in every generation. That is, Mashiach ben Yosef recognizes his brothers, but they do not recognize him. That's very true of Yeshua. This is the work of Satan, who hides the characteristics of Mashiach ben Yosef so that the footsteps of the Mashiach are not recognized and are even belittled because of our many sins. Again, accurate. Otherwise, our troubles would have already ended were Israel to recognize Joseph, that is, the footsteps of ben Yosef, the Mashiach, which is the ingathering of the exiles. Then we would already have been redeemed with a complete redemption. That's Kol HaTorah, chapter 2, aspect 39. Another famous rabbi, Rebbe Yehuda Ari Leib Alter, the famed Rebbe of Ger, he wrote a work called Sefas Emes. He pointed out that the greatness of a genuine tzaddik, a individual with excelled righteous standing, is unfathomable to the ordinary mind. And he pointed to Joseph as a case in point, saying that on 3 separate occasions, each time holding long protracted discussions with him, yet his brothers never had an inkling that they were talking to a saint of the highest stature. They thought they were dealing with an Egyptian through and through. The brothers were far from spiritual primitives. They had known their grandfather, our patriarch Isaac, and were still in their mid-40s and 50s, living in close proximity to their father, our patriarch Jacob, or Yaakov. Nevertheless, not only did they fail to realize that the person they were talking to was their superior, they thought he was a pagan. The eye makeup, the headdress, perhaps speaking through an interpreter, the attitude, the seeming disdain for them because maybe they were interpreting we're Hebrews. This Goyim ruler is just being mean to us. Where I'm going with this is that Joseph sends everyone else out of the room, takes off the headdress. Maybe he wipes away some of the makeup and says, Ani Yosef. I am Joseph. The brothers had no idea who they were talking to until that moment. I've heard it said by many that I just want to go to Israel and tell my brother Yehuda, I'm Ephraim. Don't you know me? I'm your brother. I'm Joseph. Don't you know me? Joseph waited until the appropriate time in the restoration of things. We cannot, as the house of Joseph, the house of Ephraim, the house of Israel, synonymous terms, we cannot rush that point of introduction. It's not our time to run over and start identifying ourselves, lest we be misunderstood and our intentions. Our brother Yehuda is rightly suspicious of a lot of different people and groups who have promised big and delivered small, who have made boastful claims and not followed through with righteous relationship afterwards. Theologies get mixed up and crossed over, and issues arrive. So there is this need of our being patient, not being roughshod, not being arrogant, but being a servant. Remember the prodigal son who represents the house of Ephraim. He came home to the father saying, I'm ready to be your servant. I just want to come home. I don't have to be your son. Where is that attitude in the house of Ephraim or the house of Joseph? Servanthood. And we start that by serving those that are around us. Serving out of love and out of compassion. We worship the King and we serve our brother or sister. If we can follow that model here and now, the time may be available where we can follow that with our brother Yehuda, and the future and the restoration can take place whenever that takes place. We'll see you again tomorrow. To then, shalom.